It seems like San Francisco has a problem. The business sector in San Francisco is so bad, even McDonald's is closing down multiple locations. And I think as the months goes on, we're going to be seeing more of these Mickey D Golden Arches closing down. It's not normal, right? McDonald's generally does really well no matter where you throw it. I mean, you could throw McDonald's in the middle of a highway and it still will somewhat get business. Throw a McDonald's to like a terrible neighborhood, it will still do good business. Throw a McDonald's in a rich neighborhood, it will still do great business, right? McDonald's generally never closes down unless something is super wrong with the city, but recently, McDonald's in Fisherman's Wharf has permanently closed, and this isn't the only location that McDonald's has closed. It also closed down in a downtown location in San Francisco, which is pretty shocking because downtown usually means foot traffic, and who doesn't like to get a McDonald's sandwich in the morning or in the evening, right? And McDonald's generally doesn't close. I understand if like a high-end restaurant or a family restaurant closes down, but a Mickey D's, that's pretty shocking. And what's even worse is San Francisco is getting a lot of closures of franchise restaurants, not just small mom and pop stores anymore. We're looking at Starbucks closing down 10% of their stores in San Francisco, which is about 7 stores out of like 50, 60 stores. Whole Foods has closed down. Old Navy has closed down. Vacancy rates are skyrocketing. They no longer have a commute of 150,000 office employees anymore. So the Fisherman's Wharf one, this one's very touristy. This is like a tourist trap. Fisherman's Wharf is a very popular location in North San Francisco. It's this place, which is filled with tourists, a lot of great seafood restaurants. And overall, this is what you call a tourist trap. And even now, Fisherman's Wharf is still getting some tourists, but not a lot. Tourism has really fell in San Francisco, and this could also be affecting the McDonald's in this location. But the next McDonald's is going to be the most shocking one. The downtown San Francisco McDonald's shuts down after nearly 3 decades of opening up. These guys opened up in 1990, which is before I was even born. And if you guys don't know what happened in the 90s, all sorts of crazy stuff, right? You got multiple recessions, you got wars, you also got like the dot-com bubble, then they also survived the '08s, and the depressions, all that kind of stuff. You also have massive ups and downs and vacancies of San Francisco during that period of time. But now it seems to be the final straw. Even the McDonald's have survived for 3 decades, and the volatile market of San Francisco has finally closed down its doors. It just can't compete when you have so many office workers no longer coming back. It seems like a turning event. You know, once you start getting like the family restaurants, the luxury restaurants, and the grocery stores closing down, it's one thing. But once you start getting like McDonald's closing down, you know that city is completely screwed. We like to talk about how bad Seattle is, how bad Chicago is, how bad LA is. But never has like McDonald's close at a rate of this speed. You know, 2-3 McDonald's closing down in the span of a few months isn't really normal. Generally, these stores tend to do pretty well. And especially locations are usually picked out by the McDonald's higher ups, so they can actually make sure these properties are pretty good. But remember, you know, there seems to be a lot of stores closing down in San Francisco. You got Starbucks, like I said before, is closing down. And recently, even supermarkets that specialize in just groceries are shutting down. 3 Bay Area Lucky supermarkets just closed in a single day. This isn't normal. The grocery chain is kind of done, and they don't really want to be in San Francisco anymore or the Bay Area. And this is happening everywhere. And these are just big stores that end up on the news, right? You don't really see a lot of the smaller stores in the Mission ending up on the news. If you checked out my previous video, I did talk about OpenTable, which is the reservation company for restaurants. OpenTable says that San Francisco and Chicago restaurant reservations are down the most compared to pre-pandemic. But Chicago is like 26 and San Francisco is 41%. Imagine your reservations for restaurants dropped 41 whopping percent compared to the pandemic. And I kind of see why every single week there's always some sort of small restaurant in the Mission closing down. And look at this, right? Restaurant owners are stuck in a doom loop. Low tourism is destroying businesses. Many restaurants are announcing sales are down 50%, which is pretty well aligned with the OpenTable numbers. With reservations down 41%, obviously many of these restaurants are down 50% in sales. It's not a big surprise when you put 2 and 2 together. And when many of these high-end restaurants, these very hipster restaurants are closing down, even McDonald's and even Starbucks can't survive in this market. And we also have an upcoming event, which is the APEC. If you guys don't know what it is, like the Asian Pacific Economic Convention, hopefully I got that right. But you also have big guys like Biden's there, You got the Chinese president Xi Jinping's there. And then even crazier is you got 20,000 attendees and hundreds of multi-million CEOs are all in this high-class event. In fact, this event is so high-class, they literally walled off certain parts of the city just for them, right? Insane security checks in this area. So you have 20,000 people coming in. Many of them are wealthy individuals who's down to splurge. Even the clubs are getting pretty excited. But for some reason, it seems like many of these restaurants are just not getting that many business, right? It's pretty shocking. It just seems like a lot of people who came to San Francisco, they knew what to expect. They knew it was a crazy city with a lot of drug use and crime and homelessness. Obviously, they cleaned it up ahead of the event. The APEC area, it doesn't really have any of that stuff. Actually, it's pretty shiny. But a lot of people just don't really feel comfortable walking the streets of San Francisco. If you look at what some of these people are saying is, despite having an APEC event, they end up closing on the worst day as a business owner in Soma. They've been there for 12 years, know what the ups and downs of the area are like, and this is just complete disruption. It seems like maybe walling off the city isn't that great idea for a lot of these business owners. I mean, look at this, the orders and also the business for some of these restaurants are at an all-time low. And this is why you're seeing so many of these businesses shutting down. And even with such a high-class event like the APEC event being hosted in San Francisco for the next several days, it's not helping with many of these restaurants. Many of these restaurants are taking massive beatings, and we could be seeing even worse stuff to come. Business is not great. It really sucks for small business owners to be struggling in their restaurants. It's one thing for big franchises like Starbucks, Arby's, but it's a whole nother thing for the small restaurant owners who only own 1 or 2 stores. These guys have a lot to lose. This is like their money line, their bread line. This is how they afford to eat and pay rent and pay mortgages. So they're taking a massive beating there. And yeah, business owners really need the business. San Francisco leaders are encouraging APEC attendees to explore the city, but it just kind of seems like a lot of the APEC members just don't really want to explore the city. I think they just want to be there, do their thing, and just go back. They know San Francisco's insane craziness. And this is also getting to the point where many office workers are leaving, right? San Francisco is by far in a massive doom loop, worse than any other city. We talk about how Chicago is bad. We talk about how LA is not doing well. We talk about how Seattle is having an exodus. But nothing is as bad as San Francisco. I was shocked when I looked at some of the statistics of San Francisco and Chicago. Like, Chicago still has a lot of tourists, right? It's still a big party city. If you've ever been to Chicago, the downtown region is still pretty nice. It's still pretty fine and pristine. But San Francisco, what can I say, right? Even the tech boys and the crypto boys are all going to places like Las Vegas and Miami, which are traditionally not even tech cities. One's gambling and one's hospitality, but now they're being big tech and big biotech industries. Seems like San Francisco is getting a lot of its strength, its tech, being leached off by other major cities in the US. Let's see what's going to happen. You even have whole entire buildings like these selling for 50% off. Imagine paying for this building for $50 million back in 2016 and then selling it this year for $25 million. With all this inflation, you sold it for 50% off? That sucks. And look at all these McDonald's closing down. Not great.